I'm so excited to talk to you today about one of my favorite raw food and raw dessert ingredients, which is called sea moss. Now, sea moss is also an algae. It's a seaweed. It comes from many different oceans all around the world. There's different kinds of sea moss that you can get. Now, what I love about sea moss is because it's so versatile to use in raw food and raw desserts. It acts as a binder, a thickener, it bulks up recipes. You can also use it to replace oils, but it also gives a light and fluffy texture in raw desserts. Now, what I love about sea moss is it is a very strong superfood. It is full of nutrients. It actually contains 92 of the 102 essential minerals that our body needs. It's also really high in iodine, and a lot of vegans are deficient in iodine. And if you're deficient in iodine, it can cause thyroid problems. So sea moss is really good for thyroid health. It's also really high in iron, calcium, zinc, phosphorus, and so many other wonderful nutrients. Now, there's many different kinds of sea moss that you can get. Now, the sea moss that I prefer to use in my recipes is the golden sea moss. So you can see once it's been soaked, it's really light, almost clear in color. So the reason why I like to use this color is because it's not going to affect the color of my recipes. So you can also get purple sea moss, but purple sea moss, and with it being dark, once you make the paste, it's going to affect the color of recipes, especially if you're making a light colored recipe. So I have two examples of some sea moss here for you today. This is my favorite brand. This is the Marcus Rothrantz brand. It's from marcusseamoss.com, and you can get it in the US. And then this is a wild crafted one that I got on Amazon. Now, whenever you're sourcing sea moss, and it is very easy to get now, you can get it in most major regions on Amazon online because it's gained so much popularity in the last few years, which is amazing. You want to make sure that you get a raw, wild crafted sea moss, okay? So make sure that it says wild crafted in the description, and if it doesn't, I would reach out to that supplier and just ask. Now, a lot of the sea moss that you can get nowadays is really dried. So I'm going to show you what this looks like as opposed to when it's been soaked. And it does smell a bit salty because there is some sea salt on here. So this is what it looks like before it has been soaked. You can see that it is extremely dried. So you can also get sea moss that is half dried. Now I'm going to give you different recipes for whichever kind that you can find because there's going to be different ratios of water to sea moss depending on how dried the sea moss is. This is like the new way of doing it because this is cleaned better. It's going to last a lot longer. And you'll see in the other package here, I'll show you what this looks like. This is dried even more. So this one is really dried. And this is golden sea moss as well. So this one is pretty dry here as well. So this is kind of the popular way of doing it now. Now, to make your sea moss paste, you want to rinse the sea moss very well in a bowl. So I'll do that first. I'll rinse it really well, remove a lot of the salt and debris, and then I soak it overnight. So you can soak it in filtered water at room temperature, and I just cover the bowl. So now at this point, because it's been soaking, what I want to do now is I want to rinse it again. So I'm going to drain this. I'm going to rinse it really well, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how to make the sea moss paste. Okay, so I've rinsed the sea moss really well. So this is what it looks like after it's been rinsed and rehydrated. So now what we're going to do is we want to cut this up as much as we can with scissors, or you can use a knife, just because we want to ease the blending process. We don't want to put these huge long pieces in our blender, and because if you do, a lot of it will get stuck to the bottom of the blade. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this to the blender. Now when you're making the paste, you want the paste to be quite thick. And a lot of these different sea mosses have different ratios of water to sea moss to make the gel. So you really want to pay attention to the directions on the package, but I'm also giving you the directions in the download, so please follow those. I give you the gram measurements, exactly the ratios of water to add for which kinds of sea moss. So the sea moss that's really dried or the sea moss that is half dried. So in this case, I'm just going to start by adding 1 cup of water. So I added in 1 cup of filtered water, and it's room temperature of water. So you want to blend this up. So you can see that as you're blending it, it gets quite thick. So it becomes like a gel consistency. So you can see it's a very thick gel at this point. So I always just like to have a little bit of extra water on hand just in case it gets quite thick and it's not blending. But the consistency that you want is right after it's done blending, you want it to be this thick of a gel. So this is the consistency that you want for doing recipes, raw dessert recipes, raw food recipes, my recipes, for instance. So you do want it this thick. Now, once this cools down and you put it in the fridge, it's going to thicken up even more and become like a paste. So I'm just going to add this into a jar. You want to put it into a sealed glass jar before you put it in the fridge. And this will last a long time in the fridge and also in the freezer, so you can freeze this as well. Now, a really fun way to freeze this is you can put it in ice cube trays and then just thaw, I think it's like 2 tablespoons of sea moss gel per ice cube tray, like standard ice cube tray. And then you can just measure out your quantity that way when you want to take it out and thaw it for a recipe. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial on one of my favorite ingredients to use in raw cuisine. So we're going to be using the sea moss gel in recipes throughout the course, and I hope you enjoy this superfood.